submit a story, topic, or have any other inquiries, please email submit@skibanewsnation.com. Also, you can email Jeremiah Skiba personally at jeremiah@skibanewsnation.com. Also, email Jake personally at jake@skibanewsnation.com. If you want to write us a letter, send us something, help support us, or just say hi, please send your letter to Jeremiah Skiba, P.O. Box 560-271, The Colony, Texas 75056. If you write us a letter, I'll do my best to write you back. Hey, Skiba News Nation family, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Skiba News Nation. If you want to help support us, please consider becoming a Patreon, where you will get exclusive content, shoutouts, and much more. And you can also support our channel by getting yourself some new Skiba News Nation merch. Thank you for coming on this journey with us as we continue to stay on the quest for truth. Huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. If you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation. Also, you can listen to Skiba News Nation podcast on your favorite podcast platform.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you can respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
Hey Skiba News Nation family, welcome to episode 66 of Skiba News Nation, your weekly source of the latest news, controversial topics, conspiracies, forgotten history, and much more. I'm your host, Jeremiah Skiba, and today we're going to be talking about never forget the craziness of 2020, agricultural war, the Rothchild Slip Up, Israel security, Middle East abyss, Red Dawn predicts Israeli attacks, paper cup poisoning, an all-new OPA'S Corner for history. We're going to be doing a deep dive into who really controls the mainstream media and George Carlin on Germs, memes, and much more, so subscribe and stay tuned. So without further ado, in the same, what would you call it? In the same place, my great co-host Jake Grant. Welcome, Jake. We're both in the same.
Hello.
It's live this time, man.
I'm glad to get to be on a regular Skiba News Nation show with you. Over the past week, we've had specials, we've had conference compilations, and now finally this Friday, we're back to our regular scheduled programming of just doing some news, some funny memes, some stuff from OPA'S Corner, and your segment, man. I'm really looking forward to today.
Sweet, me too. Well, let's dive right in.
So now that I have children and all the things that happen in the world have to be explained to inquisitive minds, I kind of feel like this, me explaining to my children, it's only another psyop. So this goes for a wide variety of things. But it brings us to our first video I wanted to share this week, which just is a reminder of how crazy people were in 2020. Check this out.
Okay, this is no joke. It's great.
Not social distancing.
Put your mask on.
Get away from
Put it
me.
on.
For freedom. Stop it.
Whoa, whoa.
What is going on inside your head?
So this guy in Michigan came up with this idea.
6 feet apart. Oh, yeah.
Extreme measures of self-isolation.
It gets Point across.
So you can wear it comfortably all day. Share your smile. Z-Shield wraps your face.
On prend une bouchée et on remet le masque. On prend une bouchée et on remet le masque.
Insanity.
Oh man. As time moves forward, you can often forget the things you've experienced. And when we were living in it, we're like, the world has lost its mind, right?
Yep.
But you know, you got to have a good reminder every once in a while. So I just wanted to share that. No particular news tied to that, other than the fact that that's where propaganda can lead an entire population into basically acting like Bubble Boy. So, with that shown, I want to share this next video, which is the agricultural war involving China, and you know, we know that China is one of the largest land owners in the United States of America, and it's something we need to pay attention to. Check this video out.
China's buying Ukrainian corn, and what have we talked about in regards to demand? China's not buying U.S. corn. Remember this. The United States is funding Ukrainian farmers. We're funding Ukrainian agriculture. So if you're a U.S. farmer, you're sitting on 2023 corn bushels that you're harvesting right now. Cash prices are below production costs, yet your tax dollars are going to fund Ukrainian agriculture, and Ukrainian agriculture is now taking away your demand. They're taking demand that may have come to the United States. I don't know what the correct take on this is.
So while we have this war of produce happening across the world, the United States, in funding Ukraine and their agricultural production, is axing at the knees farmers here in the United States, while at the same time China is buying out farmland. And here's a interesting tweet here. Take every inch of U.S. farmland back from China immediately. Do not leave them with a single blade of grass. But that's kind of difficult when your politicians are basically in bed with China, and all the deals that are being done in the public eye demonstrate with the paper trail that we are selling our country out to these foreign interests, and we are using taxpayer dollars to destroy American industry so that these farmers go out of business, that they can't provide for their farm and pay their bills, and so that farmland then goes on the market for cheap and gets bought up by these foreign interests. So this next video is a slip up of Mr. Rothschild. He actually mentions how the environmental agenda is perpetrated by fakers. Let's check out this slip up.
Phenomenal change that's come about in the last 2 or 3 years is there probably isn't a child over the age of 6 that isn't deeply concerned about change. I mean, there were reports in the past, but now the fakers of the world are on those problems, whether it's droughts, whether it's storms, whether it's the seaside being ruined, just undermining life.
Everything. And in a way, has slightly, I'm afraid, eclipsed the importance of this conversation. No one's saying it isn't incredibly devastating, but actually we do need to think long term about the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a distraction, well, more distraction, it's a tragedy, but it does have that knock-on effect.
Did you catch that?
Man, he just sounds like an evil villain. Like a super villain. When he talks like this.
Yeah, when you see pictures of the Pope kissing the finger of a Rothschild, now it was the previous Pope that I'm talking about, but you kind of get the weight of power going on here. Like when you see a Rothschild standing there and the United States president, and everybody's just like, hello, your majesty. Like it's crazy. But with what he's saying with the environmental fakers and how every kid over the age of 6 is fearful of these changes happening in the world, and how this green agenda is being pushed at the World Economic Forum and the UN. They're pushing all these like Paris Climate Accord type things, which Trump, by the way, had taken us out of the Paris Climate Accords, and we were promptly put right back into it with Biden's administration. And we see publicized with the Paris Climate Accords is geoengineering agendas, which is, for those who are not familiar with the terminology, kind of the politically correct way of acknowledging chemtrails and using chemtrails to seed the skies with things to geoengineer our atmosphere. Something that, by the way, over the past 20 years has consistently been called a crack nut conspiracy, but turns out to have been true all along. Who asked permission to the populace to put heavy metals and things that are being found in our soil and in our water to spray above our heads, right? Well, here's a picture. This is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called a tree. I would argue it costs nothing. And a few episodes ago, we shared a video from an Australian gentleman who was talking about this green agenda, to fight carbon emissions in Australia. And he's like, look, if you look at the numbers, they don't add up. Just the mangroves alone are cleaning out an enormous amount of carbon compared to what mankind's actually creating with our vehicles and such. And yet they're coming after the farting cows. It's ridiculous. And so I just wanted to, share that slip up from Mr. Rothschild, where he says literally the word fakers. So we had recently Nir Shoshani of Esh News on for our last Skiba News Nation special. And briefly during his talk, he talked about the inconsistencies in the narrative of how this attack was able to happen and be perpetrated there on Israel. And so I wanted to share this next video, which is the Israeli security topic, and we're gonna kind of see what Nir was talking about in terms of a thing that is nagging in the back of the minds of all the Israelis of how this could have ever been allowed to happen. How did Hamas sneak over the border, send paragliding people over, and take so many casualties and kidnap so many people? It's very questionable. Check this out.
Many times, the whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is. Yeah. And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by report.
So it brings up that question of what is the agenda that's drawing all of the world's attention into this conflict in the Middle East? And of course, any kind of terroristic action should be frowned upon. But we see in the past with our United States example of how the war machine started turning whenever we had attacks like 9/11, and we used that as justification to then go to Iraq and Afghanistan and all of the 20-year long war that happened following the 9/11 of America. And we see inconsistencies in that very narrative with the 9/11 attacks and how many buildings actually, were destroyed. You had, World Trade Center 7, for example, and then somehow instantly we knew who to blame. And while this is a little bit more of a sticky situation, just like Nir, who is an Israeli that lives in Israel and was like, look, it doesn't all add up. It doesn't really make sense. And it's a nagging thing in the back of my mind and in the people of Israel's minds. We have so much surveillance and security, and the Israeli intelligence should have known that these attacks were coming and that number of rockets were going to be all coordinated, and they didn't know about that? Come on. And so it begs the question, why is this now being correlated with the 9/11 of the United States, but for Israel? Have you seen that in the news circuit? They're saying that these attacks are equivalent to the U.S.'s 9/11. And the first thing that pops into my mind is, hey, 9/11 was a conspiracy. And so while I'm very sensitive to the topic of, people died, and I don't think that's a conspiracy, the way that the war machine starts turning and the world is drawn into this conflict is very interesting. And so that's why I wanted to share some of these articles here. Here's End Times headlines. The U.S. sends "Be ready to deploy" orders to select troops in Middle East as Israel-Hamas war escalates. And so there's a fantastic breakdown, like a sit rep report by Bear Independent. He's not associated with Owen Benjamin's Bear community. He's actually a Torah observant, he runs Refuge Medical, and he broke down in a very clear to understand way in one of his recent YouTube videos how the war with Israel and Gaza is similar in comparison to the proxy war between Ukraine and Russia, and how the U.S. is using Ukraine to fight a proxy war with Russia in the same way that Iran and several other nations, possibly Russia, could be using Gaza to fight a proxy war with Israel, and in extension the United States, who is of course going to be supporting Israel. And so there's a lot of really interesting things about this, and the timing of it all. I mentioned in the interview with Nir Shoshani how Bibi Netanyahu had just announced at the UN to applause that the Abraham Peace Accords were really starting to create an Israel-centered Middle East where peace was moving forward at an unprecedented pace. And yet this happens very quickly after. There was almost a civil war in Israel, just like we saw in the video, where they were planning to oust Bibi, and yet now he's got emergency powers. Kind of reminds me of Chancellor Palpatine. He was about to hand over the Senate, and then boom, the attack on the Jedi happens, and so now he has emperor-like powers. So there is more to meets the eye to this whole thing, and so I just wanted to share that. But there is a carrier group that was moved into the Middle East to discourage any other involvement in Gaza and Israel's war. Let's check this out. The Middle East on the verge of the abyss. UN warns as Gaza suffers and Israel prepares for offensive. So, of course, there's an enormous amount of kind of the left supporting the Palestinians and the conservative supporting Israel. So it is very interesting. It says at least 1,400 people were killed and many taken hostage during Hamas's rampage. But then you're having people like China come in there and say, all right, well, the Israel response has not been equivalent to what was actually done to them. So you have this whole agenda of pushing to support Hamas and what was done from the left. And then you have, Israel's kind of like at the point where they're going, all right, we're going in there and we're going to crush these guys because we're done with the bottle rockets and whatnot. Yep. So it's just so interesting how this is playing out. It's, in my opinion, more divisive, and it's just another way for people to be segmented into Israeli supporters or Palestinian supporters, and everybody looks like the bad guy, because if you support the Hamas Palestinian, you're like, oh, they're decapitating babies, you guys are evil. And then if you support Israel, the other side's like, well, you guys are having them blow up hospitals and tall buildings, and the response is not equivalent. But overall, it's a very sticky subject. So we have USI's weapon stockpiles as concerns grow about supporting both Ukraine and Israel's wars. And in a recent breakdown of the United States military capabilities, it was a widely spread concept that the military of the United States could support 2 wars anywhere in the world at any time, and that recently, in reporting on the actual stockpile of weapons that the U.S. has, that they said now we can only support one war at any point in the world. And so now, as this war between Gaza and Israel sparks off, we already are fighting a proxy war with Ukraine. I see the war bells are chiming, and there's money to be made. And as kind of the enforcement arm of the world's, the United Nations military seems to be the United States in a lot of ways. And so these are all things to consider. Concerns growing in the Pentagon over the potential need to stretch its increasing scarce ammunition stockpiles to support Ukraine and Israel in 2 separate wars, according to multiple U.S. defense officials. And the significance here is, if we deplete our ammunition stockpiles supporting these wars in Ukraine and Israel, then it would leave the United States open to perhaps, China attacking Taiwan, perhaps, even, a Red Dawn type situation, which would be terrible. But that brings up our next video, which is just a movie clip from Red Dawn, and this is kind of
the one with Charlie Sheen. The Charlie Sheen one?
I believe it's a scene that was reminiscent of what actually happened in Israel just 2 weeks ago, and it's just it's crazy. I mean, so why would anyone ever need an AR-15? Right? Same scene from Red Dawn, but we see in a lot of truther communities, hey, World War III is getting ready to kick off, and I sure hope not, right? That would be terrible. But it is interesting, and we have to divide the psyop from the reality. And hearing eyes on the ground testimonies from like Nir Shoshani about how this seems to be possibly an event that the state knew about at the very least, and allowed to happen to then justify this war that's been kicked off. And so that in itself is a dangerous thought process compared to what the media is telling us to believe. But just like this meme says here, Israel on October 7th. The blind kid walking, right? And now Israel, now knowing every single mosque, school, and hospital Hamas is hiding in, right? So you see them knocking down those buildings. And in terms of the U.S. propaganda, we're dropping the Ukraine-Russia war, and it's like, I don't want to play with you anymore. That scene from Toy Story. And so now we're going towards the Israel-Gaza war, all right? But both are sucking taxpayer dollars in, as it's something that the United States is now involved with financially in both fronts. And it's very interesting to me how funding is being bound together in support of these different conflicts, and that's really where a lot of the agendas are slipped under when it comes to where our taxpayer dollars are spent on. Is you have these joint funding ventures that Congress pushes through, where they're like, okay, we're going to spend one package, and we're going to throw in a couple $1 billion here and $1 billion there. We're going to support Ukraine, and we're going to support Israel now, and and then they put it all as one bill or one package, and it's just like insane how here is a interesting. Okay, this was an interesting tweet from a Russian tennis player, I think it is. And it says, the horrific attack on a hospital in the Gaza Strip is clearly a war crime. Yet, just like I showed in that picture, Israel is claiming that Hamas was in the hospital. And we know that this is a recurring theme where Hamas uses civilians to hide behind them. And then, that's why it's so unfortunate, the collateral damage in taking out the terrorists is you're taking out the civilians they're hiding behind as well. And it says, and the final responsibility for it lies with those who cynically make money from wars in different countries and on different continents, who thoughtlessly distribute colossal amounts of money for weapons, loading up their military-industrial complex, who falsely claims their global mission to protect democratic values. The USA, right? So just recently, Biden had sent billions of dollars in relief to a terrorist-run country, right? A nation that had claimed to support groups like Hamas, and we're surprised that very quickly after we're seeing attacks from these groups towards Israel, and then on the flip side, they're painting Israel as the bad guy for attacking these terrorists that are hiding in civilian buildings. And yet the United States really is the one who footed the bill, and now we're footing the bill for both sides of the conflict. Seemingly, we're footing the bill in terms of funding, humanitarian aid that could then be straight funneled into, used for terrorist, implements and equipment that we left behind in Afghanistan could be used for all kinds of bad things, right? And then now we're also funding the other side. So on every front, it's like, what's actually the motivation here? Who do we actually want to, come through this? Well, in war, there's money to be made. And here's the tweet down below. This is the tweet from Medvedev, which is a Russian tennis player, I believe. Great time to distance yourself as fast as possible from the Zionist Jewish war crimes. They just blew up a hospital in the concentration camp, and the world is noticing. So in response to what Israel did and knocking down that hospital, we see China claiming that the escalation and the response is not warranted, like it's too extreme. And then, of course, we have, Israel, who's our ally there in the Middle East, just trying to stomp on some terrorists, just like us here in the United States. We're well acquainted with just stomping out them terrorists, right?
Right.
And so it's very confusing time. It's more of a divide and conquer deception thing, and it, back to that same first meme I shared, me explaining to my children it's only another psyop, right?
Yeah.
Don't be swept away with the hyper sensationalized media and recognize that it's really your home and your family and your life that you're being distracted from. And so we can't really affect what's happening on the other side of the world, but we have to be aware that there's more than meets the eye for real.
Absolutely.
Okay, so anyways, let's check out this next video, which was a Israeli Gaza hospital. More Israelis speak out on like experiencing the rockets from Gaza.
You can hear it coming in. There you go. Like an overgrown firecracker. Now, if somebody was standing there, would they die from it? Absolutely, no doubt. Be no doubt about it. The Intifada suicide bombers did a heck of a lot more damage with suicide bombs than their little rockets that are fired in there, okay? So we're going to be looking at what happened. We're going to look at where the hospital gets hit, etc. But their rockets, like I said, if you got 1,000 rockets that were to hit the ground out of, say, 5,000, 8,000, whatever the case may be, why isn't there severe damage, buildings falling to the ground? Normally when you see rocket attacks in Israel, they hit a house or something, a hole's put in the house, windows are blown out, things like that. Nothing serious, nothing severe. But people, can they die from it? Yes, they can. They hit down the street, set a car on fire, etc. Yes, that can happen as well. This, of course, we're going to be going into this too. This here are hundreds of people are headed to an American base in Turkey. So, listen, we need to be praying for the safety.
So it was just an interesting thing to me to see one of the rockets that, you know, is being shot. And with that said, we have some other interesting news here. Check out a TMZ report on a Bigfoot sighting. It's the forest rangers can't say if it's legit. And so I saw this video actually circulating recently. And
yeah.
It's apparently a Bigfoot. Let's see this, what it looks like here. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that looks like a Bigfoot?
Either that or a human wearing a gorilla costume, or it could be a bear walking on its hind legs.
Yeah. I think it's crazy with all the like super cameras we have on our phones nowadays. Somebody can't capture better footage.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah.
Come on, you couldn't have like used your HD, 200 megapixel phone camera instead of the grainy, whatever you're using.
Was this taken? Was this taken with a drone or what?
I think they were like on a train or something. The couple that saw it, I think.
Yeah, I don't see what exactly was taking the.
So they were shooting through a window.
Yeah, that's probably likely. Yep. Anyways, so I thought that was interesting. Possible Bigfoot sighting. Hey, coming up this week, we have a meteor shower peaking soon. It's the Orunid meteor shower. It gets close to peaking this week. It says here that it's active around September 26th and stays active until November 22nd. And the peak of the shower is on the night between October 20 and 21st. So that'll be, Friday night. So if you guys are watching this live, I know we're recording this earlier in the week, but go outside tonight. Shabbat Shalom, by the way, and go check out some beautiful shooting stars and stuff. So I want to bring out that it's produced around 10 to 20 meteors each hour in the dark sky for viewing. So we love going out and seeing some shooting stars. Here's another interesting New York Post article about a devil comet. And I think it's interesting in terms of the timing. You have these solar eclipse that just happened in southern United States. And now apparently there's a devil comet that, they say is 3 times bigger than Mount Everest. And it has horns. And so I don't know how close it is. I'm pretty sure that this is not visible to the naked eye. But it is interesting to me that now this is being widely publicized of this horned comet coming closer to the Earth. So I thought that was pretty cool. Closest point to Earth won't be until 2024. But even with that said, I don't think it's going to be visible to the naked eye anytime soon. Maybe in 2024, but we'll see. Propaganda, though, I will say, there are measurable things in the heavens, and what exactly they are, I don't know. But they always love to use these signs in the heavens as an excuse to put in their CG imaging and their models of the universe and galaxy and solar system. And so, all right, so let's check out this last video, which I think is a pretty significant one. Just a warning about the poisons that are found in drinking from paper cups, which we often get at fast food restaurants, when we get coffee or whatever. So check out this breakdown.
Shared about the plastic cups that you get your coffee in at Starbucks. Let's talk about those.
A paper cup, by nature, should absorb water. If it's not absorbing water, then that means there must be a barrier in between the paper and the liquid. And that barrier is polyethylene plastic. A study found that in 15 minutes of contact with hot liquids leached 25,000 microplastic particles into your cup. But no one's questioning this. No one's really thinking about it because it's just part of our daily lives.
Are we very good at metabolizing plastics?
No, plastic is a foreign body. It's a foreign particle. In fact, it'll break down into nanoplastics. And nanoparticles in general have the issue of being able to penetrate cell membranes. So it can penetrate very deeply into the cell. It can cause...
So you hear it there, nanoplastics and the coating in our paper cups that keep it from soaking in the liquid is possibly linked to some adverse health effects. But
so now they're getting to our paper. Not
they're
just our
to
plastic. Yeah, I've always heard the plastic cups are not good for you, but they're putting stuff in the paper. It's crazy.
Yeah, they have to coat it so that it doesn't instantly absorb the water. So
like
there
wax.
is a type of waxy coating. Yep. So when you pour a hot beverage in there with coffee or whatever, imagine some of that's leaching off into what you're drinking.
Yeah.
And then they make you a patient of a hospital, and you got to go and get your pharmaceutical meds to deal with the symptoms of the poisons you're putting in your body. It's a big circle.
Yep. Awesome, man.
Well, with that said, I just wanted to end off with saying, while there's a lot of propaganda going out in the news, and there's a dividing line being pushed for people on the left to support Palestine and people on the right to support Israel, I just want to say, don't fall in line with either side. Be wary of propaganda and how these events are shifting political narratives and pushing forward the NWO agenda. And we need to look out for us here at home and not get swept up into the news. And I think that's the most important thing to take away from it is, we can allow the news to fearmonger us about World War III, and a lot of truthers oftentimes fall into that trap of, World War III is coming. And that's why I shared that video of Red Dawn. That's literally what people are afraid is going to happen. And that's, as we're being told, is what happened in Israel just 2 weeks ago. And so with that said, having a positive outlook and approach to life, and recognizing that some of these things that are used to get the war machine going is the fear behind if it could happen to us. And that's what happened in 9/11, and they're calling this attack on Israel the next 9/11. And we learned from Nir Shoshani last week's special that it is a spiritual war. Yep. And there's a process to fear-mongering that allows people to be easily manipulated. And when you see clips like Red Dawn, right, and you hear that things like that have happened, you're like, oh man, if that happened to us, that'd be terrible. We need to go, take out the terrorists now. And you don't realize that we're turning ourselves into, war fodder pretty much. And we as collective humans don't have to agree to participate in these wars. But whenever it's at your doorstep, what choice do you have? And so it's a very confusing time. A lot of people in Israel are confused how this is ever able to have happened. And so I just, I wanted to keep us kind of on edge and aware of the situation. So, all right, that's all the news for this week, Jeremiah.
Well, that's interesting because our history segment is about the history of the mainstream media and how the feds are involved. So it's interesting how we always, how did Near say it? Coincidences. No coincidences.
Yeah. With the big C, coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence. All right, man. Well, thank you for another great current news as always. And now for a quick look at my mom's book, The Protocol That Kills.
Kingsgate Media and Skiba News Nation present an exhaustive expose on government.
The new amazing book, The Emotional and Disturbing True Story.
Sheila Skiba. Following Rob Skiba's death, his widow, Sheila, and co-authors spent countless hours analyzing 40 days of recorded conversations, the transcripts of which appear in the book.
This is an extremely well-written first-hand account of the horrors Sheila Skiba endured for the 40 days her husband was held captive in the hospital.
It was hard to read and relive since I vividly remember when this was happening to this precious man. But I believe every person needs to know what was going on during the insanity of the pandemic.
Sheila Skiba, The Protocol That Kills, a True Crime Story. This book shares a wealth of critical insights that will greatly aid in preventing future needless losses of life. Available on Amazon. Order now. Find more at theprotocolthatkills.com.
It's about that time for an all new OPA'S Corner. Take it away, Opa.
The following presentation may contain too many cat jokes. Viewer discretion is advised. This presentation is rated CJ, cat jokes. Parental guidance suggested.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
Time for another OPA'S Corner, so let's get started. A man sitting at a bar looks very stressed. So the bartender asks if there is a problem. I'm not sleeping well. I have nightmares about a monster under my bed, and I'm too embarrassed to seek help. A patron nearby overhears this and introduces himself. I overheard your story, and I'm a psychiatrist. Maybe I can help. The first thing is you recognize that these are only dreams, and that is obvious, so I should be able to help you in a few sessions. Here is my card. Give me a call. A few weeks pass, and the same two are once again at the bar after work. The psychiatrist says, Hi, how goes the nightmares? I've never heard from you, so I hope you're doing okay. Oh, things are great. The bartender helped me. The bartender helped you? You needed a trained professional to help you. What possibly could a bartender do that a psychiatrist couldn't? He told me to saw off the legs on my bed. A man went to the doctor. Doc, you gotta check my leg. Something's wrong. Just put your ear up to my thigh. You'll hear it. The doctor cautiously placed his ear to the man's thigh, only to hear, Give me $20. I really need $20. I've never seen or heard anything like this before. How long has this been going on? Oh, that's nothing, Doc. Put your ear to my knee. The doctor put his ear to the man's knee and heard it say,
Man, I really need $10. Just lend me $10.
Sir, I really don't know what to tell you. I've never seen anything like this before. The doctor was dumbfounded. Wait, Doc, that's not all. There's more. Just put your ear up to my ankle. The doctor did as the man said, and was blown away to hear his ankle plead.
Please, I need $5. Lend me $5, please, if you can.
I have no idea what to tell you. There's nothing about it in my medical reference books. I can make a well-educated guess, though. Based on life and all my previous experience, I can tell you that your leg appears to be broke in 3 places.
I get it. Broke.
2 doctors, Dean and Gable, are treating a man with lung disease. They're explaining how his smoking weed has led to his condition worsening.
But it's herbal, the patient protested. How can it be bad?
Dr. Jenkins sighed. Nature isn't all innocent. Apricot stones contain lethal amounts of cyanide. There is a certain plant in my backyard. If you sit under it for just 5 minutes, you'll die. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe for you. The man seemed to accept that and promised to stop his smoking. After he left, the doctors went to lunch. As they were sitting down to eat, Dr. Smith asks, "Oh, by the way, what is that plant that kills you if you sit under it?" "A water lily." When I was about 7 years old, I accompanied my father to the funeral of a co-worker of his, someone I didn't even know. When we got there, I stood in the corner waiting for time to pass. A bitter-looking man approached me and said, "Enjoy life, kid. Enjoy it, because time flies. Look at me now. I didn't enjoy it." Then he passed his hand over my head and left. My father, before leaving, took me with him to pay honors to his friend. When I looked in the coffin, I was horrified to see that the man in the coffin was the same man who had spoken to me. I was traumatized. I couldn't sleep properly. I had terrible nightmares. I was terrified of being alone. I saw many psychiatrists, endured much turmoil through my adolescent years. I got better as I aged, but I would still occasionally wake up screaming in fear. It was many years later when I discovered something remarkable that completely changed my life. That jerk had a twin! The police department, the FBI, and the CIA are all trying to prove that they are the best at apprehending criminals. The president decides to give them a test. He releases a rabbit into the forest, and each of them has to catch it. The police go in. They place animal informants throughout the forest. They question all the plants and mineral witnesses. After 3 months of extensive investigations, they concluded that rabbits do not exist. The FBI goes in. After 2 weeks with no leads, they burn the forest, killing everything in it, including the rabbit, and they make no apologies. The rabbit had it coming. The CIA goes in. They come out 2 hours later with a badly beaten bear. The bear is yelling, Okay, I'm a rabbit! A man decides he wants to fish. Unfortunately, his favorite spot becomes illegal to fish in. Undeterred, he fishes for 2 hours, and at this point, he already has a bucket full of fish and he's still fishing. Out of nowhere, a cop comes in and tells him, "You know you can't fish here, right? It's illegal. I'm going to have to arrest you." The man hides the pole and replies, "Oh, no. Those are my pet fish. I just come here every week or so to drop them in the pond, and once they're done swimming, they jump back in and I go home." At this point, the officer smirks. He knows he's lying, so he says, "Well then, show me. If you could truly show me that they will do that, then I'll let you go." The man agrees and dumps the fish into the pond. A few minutes passed. "So, when are the fish jumping back into the bucket?" "What fish?" A Polish man married an American girl, and though his English wasn't very good, they got along very well. One day he rushes into a lawyer's office and asks him to arrange a divorce for him. The lawyer says that getting a divorce would depend on circumstances and asks him the following questions. "Have you any grounds?" "Yes, acre and a half, and nice little home." No. I mean, what is the foundation of this case?" "It made of concrete." "I don't think you understand. Does either of you have a real grudge?" "No, we have carport, and not need one." "I mean, what are your relations like?" "All my relations still in Poland." "Is there any infidelity in your marriage?" "We have high fidelity stereo and good DVD player." "Does your wife beat you up?" "No, I always up before her." "So why do you want this divorce?" "She going to kill me." "What makes you think that?" "I got proof." "What kind of proof?" "She going to poison me. She buy a bottle at drugstore and put it on shelf in bathroom. I can read English pretty good, and it says, Polish remover." And now for the funnies. Noah's Ark. "Noah, where will I put the bees?" "In the ark hives." "I dare you to step on it."
That's fun.
"I think the obedience training went too far." "Good heavens, Ronald! I think something just landed on the roof." "Oh, look, Rex! It's a scary meteor." "1965. Stop looking at those phones while you're at the table." Bucky's dream of becoming a stand-up comedian ended abruptly the very first time he stepped into the spotlight. "Looks like those big-eyed weirdos and those flying whatevers left us another big pointy thing last night." Dan is deducted by aliens.
You have a human. Wow, that counts as a dependent.
Oh, back again, mysterious bed creature. You want some, huh? Bap, bap, bap.
Yeah.
Then I remembered you once told me, when life gives you the cone of shame, make yourself a martini. Not what I meant, but cool costume. The Headless Horse Family. Rick Catsley. I was gonna wake you up, I was gonna knock stuff down, I was gonna run around at 2:30. I was gonna dislike hugs, I was gonna barf on rugs, I was gonna watch you go to the bathroom. Employees must lick paws before returning to work.
Yeah.
Sheriff's Department, Fraud Division. Who's calling?
Click. Probably a telemarketer.
Probably a good idea.
Go get the ball in 3D. Charlie, what are you doing in there?
Oh. What is he doing in there?
He's just trying to throw you off your game. Quiet, everyone. The test subject is coming.
Is that McDonald's?
Happy birthday! Here's a gift card to Becky's Belly Rubs. It's good for a 1-hour belly rub. It's like you don't even know me. The wheels on the bus. Oh, never mind. Sir, there's a line forming. Please take your name badge. Bat, bat, bat. Before the 7-10 split, Carrie A. Brunswick, marriage counselor. His mind is always in the gutter. Oh, spare me. Charlie. Remember, when one door closes, scratch on it. Stick your paw underneath it, and soon it will open.
Yep.
No ID on the John Doe yet, Chief. All we know is his exact age. The cat slipped and fell into the toilet. I was pushed. The new version of Snow White but without the non-consensual kiss, so as not to offend the new generation. When God created ducks, he said, "Waterproof that chicken and give it a kazoo." Introducing the new blooming cactus species.
I want one.
And that concludes another OPA'S Corner.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
OPA'S Corner is now available on my own YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you for another great OPA'S Corner, Opa. I didn't know Charlie was in so many places. He's right here, right now. So, he gets around, I guess, when I'm sleeping.
I wanted to say that's going to be my favorite rendition of Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up ever, because it was done by Opa and it's about like cats. So
Skiba News Nation favorite. It'll be on our hits. #1 hits. Alright. Thank you, Opa. Now a word from our good friend sponsor, JJ. Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below. Thank you, JJ. Hi, Charlie. Alright, well, it's time for some mystery. Alright, so before Charlie interrupts me again, today's history, we're going to be talking about the mainstream media and how it's a cartel. It's like it truly is. It's like a cartel. Kind of like what Jake was saying about how, you know, you got to make up your own opinion about everything. So let's go down this rabbit hole of the mainstream media cartel with this first clip. It's a preview of what we're going to be talking about later. So let's play that clip.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest
responsibility
is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things they simply aren't true without checking facts first.
In March 2018, millions of people around the US noticed something strange. Local news anchors from all over the country were reciting the exact same script on air word for word.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
That's because all these local news stations are owned by Sinclair Broadcast Group, and Sinclair Broadcast Group had a message they wanted to propagate to the masses. Most people have never heard of this company before, but Sinclair is actually the second biggest television station operator in America. Out of the 600 channels it owns, more than 150 are affiliated to news broadcasters like Fox, ABC, CBS, and NBC. More than 40% of all the homes in America watch the news on a channel owned by Sinclair. Yes, that is right. If you have a message you want the American public to accept, you gotta go to Sinclair Broadcast Group. And during COVID, Sinclair said the script was only there to reinforce their commitment to reporting the facts and avoiding fake news. But we'll let you be the judge of that. And what's scary about all of this is that it still works. What's powerful about the news is that it has this air of authority. It's kind of like when you hear medical advice from a doctor wearing a white coat.
Doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
You automatically assume that everything they're saying is true. The same is true with the news. When you wear a decent suit, when you sit in front of a professional looking set with that signature news sound effect and you say breaking news.
Breaking news. Breaking news. Breaking news.
With that very official sounding news anchor voice, the masses will automatically accept everything that spews out of your mouth. There's no way journalists will be lying to us, right? And here's the thing, deep down we all know that it's not just Sinclair News that is like this. I'm sure we've all noticed that a lot of mainstream media sounds similar these days.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
But why is this the case? Why does all the news sound the same? And how do all of these media outlets actually come together and decide, hey, we're all gonna say this next?
The mainstream media cartel. So, look at all those talking heads. I mean, that's insane. Just seeing all those clips, and I don't know if we've ever showed that on the show before, but every time I see it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is so crazy. So today I'm gonna do my best to present evidence of who they really work for, who these mainstream media people work for, why they report the fake news, and with that being said, let's dive a little bit deeper into the cartel of the mainstream media. So let's play the second clip.
So you're a journalist at one of the mainstream media outlets like CNN, Fox, or CBS. You spent years in school and college working for a degree, you slaved away at unpaid internships and dead-end jobs at companies no one's ever heard of, and now you finally made it to the big leagues. But the climb isn't over yet. At a company like CNN or Fox, you still have to prove yourself. But in order to do that, you need to break really big stories. But really big stories are hard to come by. You gotta do some real investigative journalism, you gotta work leads, get people to go on record, you gotta put your life on the line. It's a tough and risky life. But what if I told you that there's an alternative? What if I told you that you didn't have to do any work at all, and someone would just give you a giant story to report on? Well, that is where Daddy Government comes in.
Some of the biggest and most legendary journalists, like the people that broke the Watergate Nixon scandal, for example, Bob Woodward, they were given these tips by the FBI.
As a journalist, the best sources are gonna be the FBI, CIA, and US governments.
People that have these leaks, and especially in the intelligence community, they find these journalists, they give them information that will help boost their careers. In turn, the government and the intelligence agencies get whatever narrative they want out into the public.
Think about it. If you get information from a random person you know nothing about, you have to spend weeks or even months making sure their story is true. But an FBI agent, a government official, you don't have to break your back verifying their information. The fact that they're the ones giving you the information is enough. All you have to do is write the story and say it came from an anonymous FBI source or an anonymous government official, and boom, your job is done and you're climbing up the ladder. If the story ends up being true, you get a massive career boost. And if it ends up being fake, you can easily brush it off. No one's gonna get mad at you. See, if a CIA agent comes to you offering information, you are gonna publish it, no questions asked. Because if you don't publish it, they're just gonna give it to any of the other desperate journalists out there that are also looking for their big break.
Power corrupts. It's no different for journalists, and especially journalists that work for the mainstream media. As a journalist, your job requires you to have the best information. The intelligence agencies decide to strategically release what they need to manipulate the narrative.
But why? Why would the government be so eager to spill the beans to journalists?
So the government is just, they're more than just in bed with, you know, the mainstream media. I mean, they pretty much own these companies in a way, because they want to seem more credible, so they call them anonymous FBI sources, anonymous government officials, and that just gives them some kind of credibility. So what we're going to be talking about next is the true history of it, and that's Operation Mockingbird. So let's play that third clip.
This is Joseph Alsop. In the 1950s, he was one of the most well-known political journalists in America, and in 1953, he traveled to the Philippines to cover a local election. Except he wasn't asked to go by the newspapers he worked for, he wasn't asked to go by the company of journalists he worked for. No, Joseph was sent to the Philippines by the CIA. Joseph Alsop was one of more than 400 American journalists who secretly did work for the CIA between 1952 and 1977, and it was all part of what the CIA called Operation Mockingbird. This was at the height of the Cold War, when America needed all the help it could get on collecting information on communist governments around the world. And who better to collect all this information than journalists? It was the job of journalists to ask questions and travel to countries that CIA agents would never be allowed to enter. And so the CIA started recruiting journalists to do all sorts of work for them. Some journalists worked as middlemen between the CIA and communist spies, others shared their notebooks with the CIA, so the CIA could decide what they could publish. And in the most extreme cases, journalists were used as full-on CIA operatives. They would sign secrecy pledges and be sent to some of the most dangerous countries in the world to recruit and handle foreigners just like a real agent would. In other cases, they would be given fake information to pass on to foreign government officials. But one of the most important things these CIA journalists did was to influence American public opinion. Think about it this way. If the CIA wanted Americans to think the president of whatever country was evil and that he needed to be toppled, all the CIA had to do was leak a story to one of its journalists, and a few weeks later, every American would be reading about how President X was the most evil communist on Earth, giving the CIA the perfect excuse to overthrow the government.
Well, for the past 60 years in American history, the CIA has been known to manipulate the media, and they do this for political gains. In different countries, what they'll do is they'll actually create media outlets, and the problem with that is it's pretty obvious what's happening there. The people get rightfully concerned about the fact that foreign federal governments are running the state media, and so they also found that they can do this domestically in a much easier way. And one of the things that they realized is we can find journalists, we can give them these leaks, we can give them information that they want to report. And so you have this working together, the journalists and the intelligence agencies, to disrupt the way that Americans think. The intelligence agencies say this is the narrative. The mainstream media reports on that narrative along with those journalists. And as a result, you have mass manipulation by intelligence agencies domestically.
Now, when you imagine all of this, you're probably thinking that all of these journalists were just small-time up-and-coming journalists desperate for work. But that could not be further from the truth. Some of the biggest names in journalism were in on it. We're talking about executives and journalists from the New York Times, Newsweek, New York Herald Tribune, CBS, ABC, and NBC. They were all happily working for the CIA. But then in 1977, Operation Mockingbird was finally exposed by ex-Washington Post writer Carl Bernstein. So suddenly, secretly using journalists to influence America just wasn't an option anymore. But the CIA and the US government was not going to give up that easily. So instead of doing this covertly, they were now just going to do this overtly, just wide in the open.
So these journalists went from working with the feds to working for the feds. And like they said in 1977, Carl Bernstein exposed Operation Mockingbird. So they needed a new plan to, brainwash the world. In my opinion, it's like MK Ultra on the masses. I mean, what are your thoughts so far, Jake?
So I would highly suggest anybody who's interested in state-controlled media look up something called the Smith-Mundt Act, and it looks like this. I'll share my screen. The Smith-Mundt Act, and it was passed in 1948, but it was recently modernized in 2012, and you will find some deep rabbit holes in terms of state-controlled media through this search term. That's all I had to say.
Cool, man. All right, well, let's play the last clip in the mainstream media and the connection with the feds.
Turn on CNN, Fox, or NBC, and look at who they get their information from. If it's not a CIA or government official, it's usually an expert in some specific field.
And ultimately, what you have is a whole entire pipeline that creates these experts. Again, it's the universities.
Since all these experts are educated in the same system, with the same textbooks and by the same professors who all believe the same thing, their expert opinions are all naturally going to sound exactly the same. So that is why all the news that is based on their opinions is going to sound exactly the same too. And so there you have it. Most of the time, it's not a cabal of news people in a dimly lit room handing down scripts for news anchors to read like what Sinclair did. Let's be real, this probably happens sometimes, but most of the time, all the news sounds the same because everyone in the system has the incentive to push the same narrative. They all benefit, so they all play along. From the government to the intelligence officials, to the journalists to the universities. So if this is the case, where can we go to get the truth?
Now, we do our best to give you real news and... oh, maybe it overturned. Maybe he's the Fed.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, that's all I got for the mainstream media and the Fed's connection. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, for my last clip, it's one of my favorite George Carlin clips because he exposes kind of the mainstream media and how they brainwash people into believing that germs are so bad and so scary. So check out this last clip.
It's just one more way of reducing your liberty and reminding you that they can f with you anytime they want, as long as you put up with it. As long as you put up with it. Which means, of course, anytime they want. Because that's what Americans do now. They're always willing to trade away a little of their freedom in exchange for the feeling, the illusion of security. What we have now is a completely neurotic population obsessed with security and safety and crime and drugs and cleanliness and hygiene and germs. There's another thing. Germs. Where did this sudden fear of germs come from in this country? Have you noticed this? The media constantly running stories about all the latest infections, salmonella, E. coli, hantavirus, bird flu, and Americans they panic easily, so now everybody's running around scrubbing this and spraying that and overcooking their food and repeatedly washing their hands, trying to avoid all contact with germs. It's ridiculous, and it goes to ridiculous lengths. In prisons, before they give you a lethal injection, they swab your arm with alcohol. It's true. It's true. It's true. Well, they don't want you to get an infection. And you can see their point. Wouldn't want some guy to go to hell and be sick. It would take a lot of the sportsmanship out of the whole execution. Fear of germs. You can't even get a decent hamburger anymore. They cook the out of everything now because everybody's afraid of food poisoning. Hey, where's your sense of adventure? Take a chance, will you? You know how many people die in this country from food poisoning every year? 9,000. That's all. It's a minor risk. Take a chance. Besides, what do you think you have an immune system for? It's for killing germs. But it needs practice. It needs germs to practice on. So listen. If you kill all the germs around you and live a completely sterile life, then when germs do come along, you're not going to be prepared. And never mind ordinary germs. What are you going to do when some super virus comes along that turns your vital organs into liquid? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to get sick, you're going to die, and you're going to deserve it because you're weak and you got a weak immune system. Hey. All right. Let me tell you a true story about immunization, okay? When I was a little boy in New York City in the 1940s, we swam in the Hudson River, and it was filled with raw sewage, okay? We swam in raw sewage, to cool off. And at that time, the big fear was polio. Thousands of kids died from polio every year. But you know something? In my neighborhood, no one ever got polio. No one, ever. You know why? Because we swam in raw sewage. It strengthened our immune systems. The polio never had a prayer. We were tempered in raw. So personally, I never take any special precautions against germs. I don't shy away from people who sneeze and cough. I don't wipe off the telephone. I don't cover the toilet seat. And if I drop food on the floor, I pick it up and eat it. I eat it. Yes, I do. Even if I'm at a sidewalk cafe in Calcutta, the poor section, on New Year's morning during a soccer riot. And you know something? In spite of all that so-called risky behavior, I never get infections. I don't get them. I don't get colds. I don't get flu. I don't get headaches. I don't get upset stomachs. And you know why? Because I got a good, strong immune system, and it gets a lot of practice. My immune system is equipped with the biological equivalent of fully automatic military assault rifles with night vision and laser scopes. And we have recently acquired phosphorus grenades, cluster bombs, and anti-personnel fragmentation mines. So, when my white blood cells are on patrol, reconnoitering my bloodstream, seeking out strangers and other undesirables, if they see any suspicious-looking germs of any kind, they don't around. They whip out the weapons, they wax, and deposit the unlucky fellow directly into my colon. Into my colon. There's no nonsense. There's no Miranda warning. There's none of that 3 strikes and you're out. First defense, bam! Into the colon you go.
So, Opa, what are your thoughts about that clip of George Carlin? Just speaking the obvious, you know?
I thought it was wonderful.
I mean, I wonder what he would have thought about today with this crazy, you know, kind of like what you were showing in the very first clip of today's episode. Like, he would have had so much great material because we've gone a complete clown world where everything is backwards and nothing makes sense. No common sense. I mean, he was great at pointing out common sense, and we lack it today, so would he even be popular? You know, like, I think it's funny, and you guys think it's funny because it's common sense, we know what that is, but you can't teach that at school. You can teach subjects, and except for my girlfriend, she's a pretty good teacher at teaching common sense, but yeah, so that's all I got for history. I hope you guys enjoyed, and you got some memes for me, Jake?
Yeah, I got a few.
All right, meet me up.
I know you're a little younger than I am. I've adopted the attitude of the great Negro Leagues, went on to become Negro.
Meet me up.
All right. So a kid found this in the creek and asked if it was from the Civil War. Leonard Skinnard.
Yeah.
I got some good ones from Opa this week.
I interviewed Leonard Skinnard's the lead singer's best friend, Gene Odom.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah. You guys should check that out.
Civil War.
Now that's what I call landscaping. Bridge closed with a crashed vehicle.
Is that the Dukes of Hazzard
cool.
car?
I think so.
That's supposed to be a Dukes of Hazzard car.
That's cool.
A wise Chinese man once said this. Oh, man. The first image leak of VW's self-driving car.
Oh. Yeah.
What is it? Herbie
the Love Bug?
Herbie the Love Bug, yeah.
All right, this is a cool one. It reminded me of a few segments ago. We had our RV, like different RV pictures. When they say the good old days, this is what they mean. Kids riding up in the camper. Mom and dad got all the half-ton bench seat and the AM radio all to themselves. Man, that thing looks so cool.
Yeah. What happened? They don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's why I like driving our RV versus pulling a camper, because you can actually kind of have a similar, like, people can kick back and relax on the couch while you're driving down the highway. But if I was a kid, I would have loved to ride in like an RV or something like this for those long road trips.
Yeah, I'd prefer a long road trip than a plane flight. I can tell you that.
Here's a Volkswagen Batmobile. Probably the coolest vehicle I've ever seen.
Yeah, I want that. That's awesome.
If somebody ever asked me what my dream vehicle was, I would tell them a 1970s VW bus. But this is like probably 2 degrees cooler than just the regular old, green boy.
That's crazy, because that Batmobile was mine. My childhood favorite car.
Cool.
So
it's like the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Right now, America feels like Andy Griffin is out of town and Barney is in charge. Andy Griffith, sorry. After listening to his owner carry on for hours about the Borg could defeat the Death Star, Ralph suddenly realized he was not cut out to be an emotional support dog after all. How Chihuahuas view themselves when the doorbell rings.
Yep.
That's funny. Take your age. Add 5 years to it. That's your age in 5 years. Scary for some. Don't drive. Distract it, squirrel. Okay. A National Geographic photographer captures the rarely seen birth of a bass player. A bass player, sorry. There really was a time when men drove in peace. The ladies in the back and the guys up front. Man, that's a cool vehicle. That's sweet.
I had a bunch of pictures I showed Jeremiah of more modern vehicles back in the 40s with a rumble seat in the back like that. And that was what I was describing when I rode in a rumble seat to chase our tornado here in Dallas.
I would definitely rumble with that. That's awesome. Someone asked me what the 9th letter of the alphabet was. It was a complete guess, but I was right. You'll have to think about that one for a second. Today's master lesson: how to throw out a car in the garbage can.
Yep.
Oh, man. We have stopped saying, how stupid can you be? Too many people are taking it as a challenge.
Yep.
Yep. She's fixing the world. Oh, that's so cute. This reminds me of my little girl. All right. So here's not a big surprise, right? A man who's been married to a woman for 20 years is getting divorced after his wife is no longer attracted to him after he came out as trans. Gabby Tooft says his wife initially expressed support for his transition. However, over time, she lost attraction to him. So, man, what a big change. Yeah, no wonder.
Clown world. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's it goes right along with this meme right here,
Yep.
Okay, when you wake up from a night of savage posting and your friends list is 19 people less, right? It's a small price to pay for salvation. It's funny. It reminds me of some of the things people post on Facebook or whatever. They'll be like, if you don't agree with my meme, just unfollow me. You do the work. And last meme, when somebody asks, what would Jesus do?
That's great.
Whipping people out of the synagogue was not beyond him. So, all right, that's all the memes this week, Jeremiah.
All right, Jake, thank you for another great current news and memes as always. Opa, thank you for another great OPA'S Corner. I hope you guys enjoyed today's history segment and today's episode. Never quit fighting, let no man deceive you. Thank you for standing alongside us as we fight for justice and continue our quest for truth. Subscribe and stay tuned.
If you would like to submit a story, topic, or have any other inquiries, please email submit@skibanewsnation.com. Also, you can email Jeremiah Skiba personally at jeremiah@skibanewsnation.com. Also, email Jake personally at jake@skibanewsnation.com. If you want to write us a letter, send us something, help support us, or just say hi, please send your letter to Jeremiah Skiba, P.O. Box 560-271, The Colony, Texas 75056. If you write us a letter, I'll do my best to write you back.
Hey, Skiba News Nation family, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Skiba News Nation. If you want to help support us, please consider becoming a Patreon, where you will get exclusive content, shoutouts, and much more. And you can also support our channel by getting yourself some new Skiba News Nation merch. Thank you for coming on this journey with us as we continue to stay on the quest for truth. Huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. If you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation. Also, you can listen to Skiba News Nation podcast on your favorite podcast platform.